I'm going to talk about 3 things that are working well right now. Again, I think it's easy right now in the coaching space to talk about a lot of things that aren't working or, like aren't serving us. And I'm here for that conversation. I think it's an important one. And like, we don't want to lose sight of the fact that there are actually some things that are working. There is a way to do business that feels good to you, all of those things. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And listen, remember, you may like some of the things I say, you may not. Like, this isn't like, these are the only things that are working. This is not like an exhaustive list by any means. This is just, naming what I see is working right now. And you can take that or leave that. You can be like, oh, that really resonates. I want to do more of that. Or you can be like, that's cool that that's working. That's not what's working for me, or it's not what fits me. All with context. Stephanie's been admiring the full moon. So good. I feel like that's such a good energy. So, also a reminder, any comment for a chance to win a $100 gift card, just per usual, as our thank you for being here and for spending time with me. Okay. So I want to get into it. I want to talk about a few specific things. Maybe we'll do a bonus one at the end if we have time, because I was like, I kind of have a 4th one. But we'll start with our 3 and we'll see what we get into. But the first one that I want to talk about, I feel like has a lot of nuance to it. So we'll probably spend a decent amount of time on this one. But I feel like when you initially hear this thing, it's kind of easy to be like, whoa. Right. But like, that's sort of like what I want you to stick with me through, is like, there's a lot of nuance to this one. So the thing that's working really well, personal outreach, like it just is. Right. And I'm not just saying that from a perspective of, just my own business or anything like that. I'm talking multiple people, multiple businesses, not just my clients, but people I'm talking to at a higher level, like what's going on in our space, what data I'm seeing, et cetera, et cetera. Like all of it suggests that personal outreach is working really well right now. But the reason I said there's a lot of nuance to this one is because I think there's like a vast spectrum of what personal outreach means. And I think that's where it gets twisted and where people get so turned off by the idea of personal outreach, when it's like really one of those things where it's like, yeah, it just depends on how you do it. So let's talk about that. Hey, Tina. Oh, I'm glad for you to catch me live too. Hey, Steph. Yes, let's definitely talk about what that looks like. Exactly. You like it too. So when we say personal outreach, I think the most important word there is personal. This does not look like cold spamming a million people with the same copy and pasted message. Like that is not personal outreach. Like, yes, you might be sending a personal message, but to me, that is not personal outreach. And so I think it's important to make that distinction, because I feel like when people hear that term, like that's the first place their brain goes, is like, oh, I'm supposed to like personally outreach to like 70 people with the same like cold message. And that's not it. It's like actually paying attention to your audience. It's actually paying attention to who's engaging with you, who's connecting with you, who's reading your content, who's opening your emails. It's that. And it's also like, who just is a dream client? Like, who would you just really love to be a client? And can you make some kind of personal connection or outreach there that starts to facilitate that process? So you can come at this from different angles and we can talk about those. But I think the broader point here is that I think in our space right now, it is so easy for people to feel like just a number, right? They're just a sale or just a number, or just like a thing. So you can kind of go post, how much you made that month or whatever. And that feels really, really bad, And so when someone actually takes the time to do personal outreach that's actually personal, to name you and why they'd want to work with you, that kind of thing, it really goes a long way, because it's so different to what we're experiencing, I think, on the whole in our space. And then also, one thing I've been talking about a ton lately, and we'll actually talk about it in a little bit on some other point, is that our industry just has a really big trust problem right now. And so when you can bridge that gap by doing personal outreach, making a personal connection, it really helps with the trust piece, because it feels like you're a person talking to another person. It's not like, oh my gosh, this is like, can I trust this marketing message? Can I trust this email that says it's going to get me all these things? It feels like a person-to-person connection, which always is trust building. You know what I mean? Like that never doesn't build trust. Julie said, right on, I'm in the middle of a connection sprint. So I'm curious about your take. I love that, Julie. Yeah. So two kind of angles, I think, I mean, there's like a million angles, but two that we'll talk about are you engaging with your most engaged people? I feel like people miss this so often, but it's like, do you see who's watching your stories a lot? Do you see who's liking your posts a lot? Do you see who's opening your emails? Like these are knowable, seeable things, right? And have you made an effort to connect with those people? Like, have you reached out and said, Julie, I noticed that you come to every live stream. Like, I'd love for us to connect more. Like, what are you working on right now? It could be that easy. Or like, hey, so you coming to every live stream and right now I'm, doing this offer. Have you thought about joining us? Like, is that something you're interested in right now? That level of just like, hey, I see you. I see how you're kind of like showing up and I want to, find out more about you, or I want to know if you want to join this program, can go a long way. And I know it can kind of feel like intense sometimes to be like, have you thought about joining the program? But I actually think that's just super transparent. And I think it works really well. Someone might be like, yeah, I was actually thinking about it, but I'm not sure because of this. And then you open that dialogue, or they could be like, no, and here's why. And you just did some amazing market research. Or they could be like, yes, and actually was kind of like waiting for a sign. And this is it, because I feel like you really will value me being there. So there's not really a downfall to that if you're honest and transparent. And again, if it's somebody that's already interacting with you, that's already like raising their hand to have a conversation with you, to show up in your DMs, to come chat with you on a live stream, to like your content, like there's like a back and forth that's associated with that versus just like a total random, like, I'm going to spam everyone that like maybe followed me once, like 4 years ago kind of thing. Claire said my client signed 100K or 100-pound client recently with personal outreach. People can feel the tone of personal versus spamming. I love personal outreach. Yep, 100%. Like it really is such a game changer. So that's one version of it. Another version is just like, hey, I see how you're showing up. I see the way you're doing XYZ online. I see what your message is. Like, to me, you are an absolute dream client for me. Like, do you have any interest in XYZ thing? Right? Like, tell them about themselves. Tell them that they're a dream client. Like, make them feel special if they are authentically right to you, and lead with that. And again, I think that does not feel gross or spammy because you can feel the personalization of that. And like, who doesn't want to be someone's dream client? Again, especially in a space where it feels like that's not really taken seriously, or we're not taking customer service seriously. But to feel like, hey, I like really see you in this way. So again, different ways to do it. But I think the point here is, are you doing it in a really truly authentic way? Are you doing it with people that you already have something with? Like you already have enough to say about them to say why they're a dream client, or you already engage with them and interact with them in another way. Like those things go so far. I actually had someone reach out to me and send me an email and was like, hey, you're a dream client. Here's why. And here they're like a direct response kind of copywriter. And they were like, hey, you're a dream client. Here's why. And then also here's something I wrote for you. Feel free to use it. Like I just wanted to like give you some value to show you what I could do. And it was amazing. And I reached back out to them and was like, hey, listen, I actually don't have like a role for this right now in my business, but I have lots of clients who do. Like, tell me about what you do. Tell me like what your offers are. Like, let's get to know each other more. Like, so like maybe they didn't get to work with me in that situation, but I'm going to refer them. Right. So I think it's just helpful to see that it's not always like, okay, I just like do this personal outreach and it gets me one thing. It's like, you're going to have to put some effort into it. Like this person definitely put effort into that outreach, but it's going to pay off for them, even if it wasn't maybe in the exact way that they thought it would be or whatever, like that is going to be a good exchange point for them. So, there are a lot of ways to do this, but being authentic, leading with value, being willing to kind of put yourself out there, maybe being willing to give before you get, like all of these things are a really big deal. And I just think so not the norm right now, which is probably why it's working so well. Cause it's like, well, no one else is really doing stuff like that. And I'm not saying no one, obviously people are, but by and large, I feel like the vibe in the industry is, and I've been like joking about this lately. I think I said this last time, but it's basically like, how dare you talk to me, peasant, you know? So when you're like, no, I like want to talk to you. I want to reach out to you. I want it to be a thing, like that is such a game changer. Claire said, yeah, basically what he led with. I love how the industry is coming around to deep connection. That's what I love so much about my bridal company. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people definitely don't do personal outreach well. Exactly, Michelle. I think there's such a difference around this. Like another way I've seen people do it that I think is well-intentioned, but I think usually doesn't land well is where they'll send you something about like everything wrong in your business, you know, and they're like, I see you're doing XYZ things and I could help you do this better. And like that, even though that's kind of leading with value, that's not really it either. It's like, right, like this person that reached out to me wasn't like, hey, I think your copy is shit, and here's what, like they wrote a sales email I could use kind of thing, right? They weren't like, oh, your shit sucks. They were like, hey, here's this like extra value. So I think there's like a way to do that that's not like, here's how you suck, because they don't think that goes well either. But I think very much like I see you showing up for all my stuff, or I see you doing this amazing thing that really inspires me. Like that's the kind of stuff that goes a long way. Dina said, it's funny, as personal connection would have been my go-to before I learned about how to do marketing. And then I got confused for a while. This is so validating. Yeah. I mean, I think that's so true, right? I think we miss how much it's like an ecosystem. Like maybe you have great marketing, like just the example of like, you know, maybe people are showing up to your stuff, but they're not converting yet. So like, could that personal outreach take them over the edge? You know, I think that's really valuable to see, like it all can work together. It's not like you're a great marketer or you do personal outreach. Michelle said, I personally hate when people make small talk in the DMs. I really like the idea of personal outreach being seeing someone else. Yeah. And also I think just being transparent, like, hey, you're a dream client for me. I'd love to have you in this. Or, hey, I see you showing up to a lot of my stuff and I'm selling XYZ right now. Have you thought about joining us? Like, I think the transparency is important, because I think when it just feels like someone's kind of like randomly trying to shoot the shit with you and you're like, what's the intent here? It can feel so weird, which I think is hard. Yeah, Alessia said same. When they start with like, I see you're a coach. How long have you been doing it for? I can smell from a mile away. That's so fake. Yeah, I think it's also fake because it's like, you know, you're copying and pasting that to like 100 people. You're not like genuinely curious. Like you're not like, oh, I see that we probably started around the same time, like da 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 da, and it feels like a personal thing. It's like you can tell what's going on. So big difference. But something I wanted to say on that too that I thought was like really important is I recently was at like an in-person retreat with a lot of other seven-figure business owners, and the feedback to a lot of them was, are you doing personal outreach? Like, are you doing more personal outreach? Like, have you like made this a thing in your business? And so I think it's important to say that, because I feel like sometimes this gets positioned as something you would only do if you weren't like on this pedestal or something like that. And it's so not true. It's almost like something you're really smart if you do, something you're really strategic if you do. So it's not just like, do this if you're at the beginning of business. Like that is not it. It's like, this is a strategy that's working right now. How do you incorporate it into your business and how? And obviously, depending on how much volume you have in your business and what offers you have and so on and so forth, like there's going to be different ways to do that for different things. I'm not saying like you should be talking to everyone in your like 100,000 people in your DMs personally, but you know, I am saying that this is not like a do it because you're new strategy. This is like at every level getting seen and recognized and suggested as a strategy that just is working well right now. And I think that it's just what a lot of people don't want to hear sometimes, because I think people are intimidated by personal outreach, or it feels scary, or it feels vulnerable, or they don't want to put themselves out there in that way. And so, you know, I think what happens, let me see how I can bring that. I think what happens in our space is because people feel resistance to that, then other people will market in a way of being like, I never have to reach out to anyone ever. They only come to me, buy from me to learn that. And people are like, oh my God, yeah, I'm going to totally go buy from them to learn that, because it freaks me out like crazy to think about doing personal outreach. But it's like, or we could be like, hey, this is a strategy that's working really well. You can decide to do it or not. What hangups or fears do you have around it? And how do we look at that versus like, you know, the like, I'll teach you how to sell without having to sell. Well, of course that works. And of course that person makes a lot of money because that's a really attractive promise. but they're making a lot of money because that's a really attractive promise. Does that make sense? Like, I think that's what gets so confusing in our space. Like, they're not necessarily making a ton of money because they've figured out how to sell without selling. They've figured out how to sell something that like hits on the core of our like discomfort or insecurity. Different thing. You know what I mean? Like, noted. So I think that's why sometimes personal outreach gets such a bad rap in our industry. But I really, really think that like across the board, it works. It's working well. Finding a way to do that feels good to you is really important. But it matters. It really does, you know? Julie said, I am doing it because I'm new and because I want to get more visible and start a Facebook group next month. And I will circle back to anyone I helped and invite them. Now I know how to make it super personal. Appreciate it. Yeah, so good. Michelle says this is a really good combo and has my wheels turning around who I can personally reach out to. Yes. And a lot of that info is available online. So it feels like they don't actually know anything about me and haven't even tried. Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think so much opportunity here. And again, just finding the way to do it that feels good to you. But like, truly, I think this is a game changer in our space right now. And I think it's just a really smart strategy to be implementing. And I think, yeah, just like put yourself in those shoes. Like when I got that email that was like, hey, here's why you're a dream client. Here's this thing. Here's what nothing about that felt bad to me, right? I wasn't like, how dare they email me or whatever. I mean, I was like, I literally didn't have the need for that right now, but nothing about that was like weird or bad or slimy or I was like, tell me more. Like, this is awesome. You're awesome. What can we do in the meantime? How can I support you in the meantime? Right? Like it, by and large, goes well. Even if it doesn't translate to something in that moment, which by the way, is almost all strategies. Like not all strategies are going to translate to an immediate result 100% of the time, but they might create a lot of interest for down the road or a pipeline or whatever. And that's really valuable. I struggle with the personal outreach to clients because I know that anonymity is really important with my audience. And I like the reminder that it doesn't always have to be reaching out to potential clients. Making genuine connections with folks who are industry adjacent is also really invaluable too, 100%. Personal outreach to you is basically how I eventually ended up on Literally. I was definitely that girl in your inbox, 100%, 100%. Like, and that is how things happen, I think, in large part. Do you know what I mean? Like, at every level in business, like there is something about having personal communication, personal conversation. Michelle was definitely that girl in my inbox, but it also helped me be like, I can see how we could have great conversation on Literally. I could see how this would go. I could see why she would be a great person for it. Like it really, really helps and makes a difference. So I think just like not seeing that as a bad thing. And this again goes for anything. Like this isn't even just for a client. Like Michelle was saying, like, could it be for a referral contacts? Could it be to get on more podcasts? Like what is that makes a difference? Like someone I know that I'm like have a friendship with was on a podcast. And somehow when she was talking to the host, my name came up. And the host was like, oh, like I would love to, have her on the podcast. And my friend was like, oh my gosh, just reach out. So this person just sent me an email and was like, hey, you don't know me, but I know so-and-so. Here's why I'd love to have you on the podcast. 100% yes. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh, that's absolutely good. You know what I mean? Like, it's like that little bit of personal outreach just goes such a long way. And I think so many people like feel, what's the word? Like it opens a thing to you. Like, it's like, yeah, oh, I'm so open to that. Let me do that. So anyway, just like so helpful to see it works, not just for clients, although yes, but like on a many different levels. Can also confirm the email was very personalized and made it clear that I'd actually listened to the podcast. Exactly. I was actually telling someone this today, but you would not believe, literally, you guys would not believe the number of emails I get pitching me a guest for Literally. You did not even read the show description. Like, I am so clear about what Literally is. And I get an assload of emails pitching me guests for Literally. And it's crazy. But it's like, let's assume that that's what everyone else is experiencing too. They're getting a ton of impersonal, spammy things. And so when you're the one person that shows up in a different way, guess what? You're gonna stand out, right? So like when I get a million of those and then Michelle sends me this like incredibly personalized, clear email that she's listened to every episode of the podcast and like, of course that's going to jump out at me. Of course that's going to give me a good feeling. Of course that's going to make me want to explore that more than whoever the F is in my inbox who obviously has not even like read 2 sentences of a show description. You know what I mean? Some ways that people do personal outreach does not land right at all. Exactly. And again, it's just, to me, that's not personal outreach even, right? Like if you're just like randomly showing up in my inbox trying to get on literally, and you as a guest, where we don't have guests, like you just fundamentally aren't doing personal outreach. Like that email I know got sent to 100 other podcasts. You know what I mean? Like that's what's frustrating. And I have to spend my time even to like open it, read it and delete it. But still, like that is totally different and not the thing. That's when you know the person has not listened to the literary podcast. Exactly. It's like, come on, guys, go on. Okay, so that was the first thing. Important. Next thing. We've been talking about this a lot. So not to like, you know, talk about this topic endlessly, but our industry has a trust problem right now, right? Which we have to close a gap around if we want to have more clients, make more sales, right? So how do we do that? One of the best ways we can do that is with client results and trust builders in that way, whether it's like results, specific results that you can give, like really specific data points of results, case studies, videos with clients, like any of those things, right? And I'm not saying this is everything. You know, I'm like, obviously like people can have those and still not be great. But I do think it's a really important one. I think that some, you know, it feels like for a while our space was like almost only like, I have this result, look at me, buy from me because I have it. And I think people have really gotten more aware of the fact that that kind of means nothing for what result that they can help you get. And so I think they are looking more toward like, well, what are the other ways that I can trust this person besides just their results? And it's like, what have you done for clients, you know? And so I think that's really, really, really important to focus on. Michelle said, when you say our industry, are you referring to coaching in general or is this specific to business coaching? I think coaching in general, honestly. I think certainly business coaching has gotten dealt a hard hand lately. So I do think that that's like very much a piece, but I really do think coaching in general, I think the market got flooded with coaches, life, health, business, like all the things, right? Especially during, 2020 kind of into 2021. And I think it just did some overall damage in the sense that, I think a lot of people were doing it that maybe weren't ready to do it, maybe weren't getting great results on, again, across the board. And I think we're just, coming back from that. Again, I think very much business has like had a specific one with that, but yes. Curious how it impacts someone with an audience that isn't all up in the coaching space versus someone whose audience is very familiar with the industry. Yeah, I think but similarly, right? Like, I don't think you have to be like talking about like, hey, the business coaching industry has like trust issues kind of thing, if that's not your thing. But I do think like finding a way to like really establish trust, like Julia's just saying, like, I can just go to a therapist is a big objection for coaches, right? And it's like a trust thing. Like it's sort of easier to trust a therapist, I think, in many ways, because it's like credentialing, blah, blah, blah. It's more normalized, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think, again, it's like maybe just how you would approach it, but I do think trust across the board is a thing. And I also think like, there's like a little bit more like everyone's a life coach kind of like vibes in the world a little bit more. Like, I think that's gotten more mainstream, I guess is what I want to say. And so I think people are just like a little more going on here kind of thing. And again, doesn't mean that it has to be like so big for your specific business. Like if this is not an issue for you, do not make it an issue, please. Truly. But in general, if you're like, oh yeah, I can see how like I need to like work on trust builders with my audience more, I think that's helpful. And honestly, for anybody, even if there's not a trust issue, trust builders with your audience is still useful. Hey, Anna. State of the market. Thank you. I love you. Thank you for being here. Steph said, hey, Liz, I think so much of the challenge with trust is that the big wins and testimonials are the few rather than the many, showing what's possible versus what's realistic. Expectation can feel like a fine line. Totally. I mean, listen, I think you still do want to share your big wins. Like, I think that those are still important and you still get to own those, and those still matter in the grand scheme of things. But I think having a bigger conversation, absolutely, and being willing to like level set that with a client makes total sense. But I do think like, yes, like there's nuance there, right? But also I don't think that we have to like not share the big wins and testimonials. I think if anything, what I've seen people get away from is they've only been sharing their own big wins and not really making clients a big piece of that. And I think that hurts too, because it's sort of this mentality of like, I don't even have to have helped a client get that. It's just me, right? And then it goes down even more of like, okay, well, I've helped a client get that. How many clients? What does that look like? I mean, there's obviously more to the story, but totally hear what you're saying. And I think there's like many, many phases of that. Dina said, yes, like coaching is so much more mainstream. So trust building needs a bit more time, but it's honestly not too hard to do better than many of the people out there. Great perspective, Dina. I think you are spot on. Yes, trust builders should be a regular part of your content marketing. Steph said, yeah, 100%. So again, I think that in some ways this is a response to like, I think that shift in our space of like, you know, I'm only sharing my wins versus like, do I have evidence that I can help clients in this way? What does that look like? That's really relevant and important too. So making sure that's a focus, making sure that you're creating airtime for that, making sure that that isn't something that feels like I've had so many clients say to me like, oh yeah, we have like so many testimonials sitting there, we just haven't done anything with them. And I'm like, now's the time. Like, what are we doing with them? What's the strategy? Like, this matters a lot. So I think just like cleaning up what's sitting there, doing something with it, going out and getting them from past clients. If you haven't, like all of these things matter a lot. And I think go a long way to build trust. You know, I was saying like last week, which I think it's funny because someone was like, oh, I think some of the industry disagrees with this. I was saying like asking for referrals from the person you're going to hire. And like, to me, if you have a testimonial, like I want to be able to like maybe go reach out to that person and be like, hey, I see you on, you know, Claire's website. How was your experience of working with that? Like that is really trust building, you know? So I think that having those testimonials, having them easily accessible, having people that other people could reach out to, like that is really useful. Claire said, I found video testimonials really help with showing what's possible versus just sharing my own results. 100%. Like, and again, this doesn't mean don't share your own results ever. It's just like, I think that collectively we've woken up to the fact that one person getting results does not necessarily translate to them being able to like coach or mentor you into your own. And so just kind of being able to showcase how you can actually do that is really helpful. You know, I think just kind of like in sports, like sometimes the best players aren't the best coaches and vice versa. And so like, are you sharing a well-rounded picture of that? I think is what's really important. Yeah. Alessia says she's collecting video testimonials now too. Yeah, I think that matters. What else on the client results piece? You know, I think other, like apart from client results, other trust builders are just like speaking more openly about like your business or your journey or whatever. Like if you're not a business coach, like and you're a health coach, like what, like, are you speaking openly about your journey? Not in just that, like, I'm trying to make it look really perfect and put it on a pedestal way, but I think just like more transparency, more realness, and not in the way that you have to like vulnerably share all of this stuff that doesn't feel good to you. But I think just trying to be open about things goes a long way for trust, because like we can all tell, you know, like you can tell the energy of someone trying to make themselves look perfect, or the energy of someone who is showing up authentically with you. You can tell the energy of someone who is, you know, sharing something because it's a thing for them versus the energy of not. Like one of my client lessons last week, I started to record it, and it was about like sharing some stuff that's going on in the industry. And I started to record it, and ended up kind of like going off on this tangent about how much I second guess myself about speaking out about stuff I see going on in the coaching industry, and how it's like really something that I've been like struggling with and have been trying to like be a better filter for, and all of this kind of stuff. And I could have just like re-recorded that, because I kind of went off on a tangent, had another point, was sharing what I was struggling with. And it would have been so easy for me to just be like, oh, I lost the plot. Like, let me re-record. And I was like, oh no, I'll just share this one. Because to me, like, that's authenticity and transparency. And so I'm not just coming to you on this pedestal being like, look at how perfect I am. I'm like, hey, here's the thing I'm struggling with right now too. So again, I think just trust. It's so wild, because this shouldn't feel like new information, but like just sharing something real and true, versus like, you can tell when someone's like trying to like put themselves on a pedestal. Like, it just goes a long way, shoot, I missed some of y'all's comments. Steph, I think you had a question. Can you copy it by any chance for me? Michelle said, I was just told I couldn't give likes to what you were saying because Facebook is protecting the world from spam. Weird. For this live stream, apparently I'm too speedy for the algorithm. Oh, because you made too many comments. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. So silly. Claire said that made me laugh. You tried so hard not to. And I could see where you then like, fuck it. Yeah, exactly. I was like, I'm trying to not like go off topic here, but whatever, fuck it. Steph's question was, what are your thoughts for brand new people in the industry who don't have that yet? Like, great question. Honestly, that would be my focus. Like, I would be like, how do I go out and build those testimonials? How do I go out and serve clients? So you guys know my take on this, right? Like, if I had to do it for free again, I would. If I had to like offer scholarships, I would. Like, I really think that is the absolute crux of a sustainable business, and like going out and finding ways to build that matters so much. I feel like, everyone will tell you like, it's about so many other things when you start. And to me, it's like, it's always going to be about the service, the happy clients. And the sooner you can get them in the door and get, testimonials and trust builders from that, the sooner things take off, right? Even the amount of people that then refer you, like if you give 3 people a great experience and they each tell one person, like, that stuff makes such a difference. And so, yeah, that's like where I would start 100%. Like, how am I going out and building this? Oh, too many clicks. Yeah. Yeah. Even if it means doing free calls, 100%. Like, if you're not kind of willing, in my opinion, to like go out and like do that for a little bit to get those testimonials, like you do not love the craft in the way that you think you do, like, but if you're like, oh yeah, I'm like, I will 100% do that. I want the testimonials. I want to coach people. I want to be in it. Like, that's a whole thing. Hey, Lucy, thanks for being here. Working with a couple of clients for free at the beginning of my business was one of the best things I ever did. And it led to my first 2 video testimonials, 100%. Yeah, everybody's saying same, right? Like, it makes such a difference. It really does. Okay, so last one, but maybe we'll do a bonus, we'll see, is having a unique angle and like being willing to kind of refine that in your craft. I think one of the bigger complaints that I've heard a lot about the coaching industry, I think, again, to be specific, business coaching probably top of it, but I think just 100% in general, is that everyone sounds the same, which I think is true, because everyone's selling a marketing formula or a way to say it as like the ultimate thing that gets you results. And so I think like a lot of people have become like carbon copies, or like you can even tell like who people are coaching with based on like how they're saying something or what their brand looks like or whatever. And I think that goes back to the trust thing, but I also think it just makes it really hard for a buyer to like feel connected to you enough to buy. And I also think it does make trust hard, because it's not like I can feel you through your marketing and brand. It feels like I'm just reading the same thing I read 12 other places. And so I really feel like this is so important. Like, what is your unique spin? And I feel like it can get frustrating sometimes to hear that, because you're like, I don't know, or like, I don't want to have that, or I don't want a niche. But honestly, like, it's just helpful online. It's just working really well to have a unique take on stuff. Because yeah, I'm not saying you can't get a few clients if you're saying the same thing as everyone. Like, of course you can, but I think it makes it really hard to like sustain that or stand out in any way. So like, if you want your business to go beyond that, I do think it's really, really important to have something stand out. This is my favorite, adding something unique to business coaching, which makes it feel so different and aligned. Yes. Curious what examples of these differentiators are. Is this where storytelling can really come in? Yeah, it might be storytelling, or it might be just like a different angle. Like, this is just the first example that's coming to me, but like one of my clients, she teaches people how to build Airbnb businesses, but the way she does it is she teaches them how to do it without having to own property. So through like arbitrage, so where you like rent a place and then you Airbnb it. And so she's had such a unique spin, and her business has just absolutely taken off because of that unique spin, right? Like, it's like, yeah, I'm teaching you Airbnb and so are a million other people, but I'm teaching you how to do it in this specific way. And like, that skyrockets it, right? Let me think of another example. Trying to think of like non-business coach examples too, because I think it's sometimes helpful to have it outside of that. But it's like, if everybody's teaching like how to lose 5 pounds, like what's your unique way of teaching that? You know what I mean? Like, do you have a specific formula or theory or way of doing it? Are you working with people that have tried everything else and it hasn't worked for them, and then this specific thing does, right? Like, it's like, what is that unique spin? I'm a career coach, and my unique perspective is that I just got certified in nervous system regulation. Yeah, perfect, right? So it's like, okay, they're probably not hearing that from any other career coach. Steph said, here's an example. I travel full time. I've incorporated travel business intensives where I invite clients to where I am and create a unique experience that they love. So good. Perfect, Michelle. Right. Like, it doesn't have to be like massively different. Like, it's not like Julie's still not a career coach or Steph's still not a business coach or whatever. It's just like, what is that unique angle that makes someone go, oh yeah, that, I mean, mine is a good example of that too. It's like the partnership. I'm like a very standard business coach in many, many regards, but, like the way I do revenue share partnership model has always made me stand out and have a really unique perspective in our space. And I think that's really, just always been helpful for me. I think even on the partnership masterclass when I did it, I was like, if everybody starts using the partnership model, I'm going to have to like rethink my business and rethink like what makes this different. You know what I mean? So I think that's like helpful to say. It's like, this is the kind of stuff that matters right now. Michelle said, okay, one of my unique spins is incorporating human design into my infertility coaching. 100%, definitely unique. Is our coaching framework also the way to differentiate? I think yes and no, Alessia. I mean, I think for sure in terms of like showing people how you work, but I also think like that has also become like, I love a framework and I have built my business off one, but I also feel like it's just become such a thing too that like is so like kind of how we all sound the same. Like everyone has some version of it now. So I think yes, and there's probably like a little more to work on there. That makes it more unique, but yeah, totally can be part of it, I think. So unique spin, and then refining of your craft. I'm kind of putting those together because I think they go hand in hand, but I feel like when you can show people like, hey, I'm like really trying to like learn along the way, and here's how I'm doing it, and here's what's getting better, here's how we're refining things, or here's how we're taking this program to another level, whatever. I think that goes a long way. I think when it feels like, again, some of this pedestal kind of stuff where it's like, oh no, I just am perfect. I do the perfect thing. And like, that's it. It gets old after a while, right? But like watching someone like evolve and like really like build their craft, whether that's like how they are with health coaching or business coaching or relationships or whatever, I think is really valuable. And so I think that, sharing some of that too, and really like, I mean, it sounds so fucking obvious when you say it out loud, right? But just like really caring about your craft and like showing that in your business, again, I think it's a trust builder. I think it sets you apart. And I think it's And again, it doesn't mean like through a certification or something. Like I actually don't mean that at all. I just mean like, hey, I'm like learning these things for my clients, or we're adding this value. Like one of the ways like I've done that is with Dateable, right? It's like we added a shit ton of value to our existing clients. I really expanded my knowledge base a lot in terms of that. Like, it's like, where are we like stepping it up, adding value, and like caring so much about like our people, our craft, all of those kind of things. And this can be done in big and small ways, but I do think that there's really something there versus sort of just the like, I'm perfect kind of vibe. And again, I think sometimes refining your craft is actually what gives you that unique spin. Like maybe when you start your business, it's hard to find that unique angle, but maybe as you go, it's easier and easier to find it because you refine it over time. And so I think that's really important too. I feel like just finding ways to kind of stand out. Again, I think it's like a little harder to just be like, I'm a business coach and get a million clients now. I think there has to be more to that story. And so these are ways to do that. Yeah, I really like that. Good. Thanks, Julie. This is why I share so much of my travel life, to take people on the journey with me in living a true freedom-based lifestyle, heading to Ireland for months from now. So cool. Awesome. Yeah. So I think that's sort of, there's like a million ways to do that, right? But I do think like unique angle, unique spin, honing your craft, like really showing like how you're kind of like pouring into your business, I think, versus again, I feel like what can happen so often is it just feels like there's, what's the word? Like, I did this thing once and then I use these repeat marketing messages and like everyone should come flooding in. And if they're not, what's wrong? Like, I think the true truth, and maybe this is a whole other live stream, but is that like, it takes more to grow now than it did before. It just fucking does. Don't think everyone wants to hear that. I don't think it's, like it doesn't have to be hard for everyone, but I do think it just does take more than it used to. And I think that sometimes what it takes, people don't want to do. Like, I don't want to have to like refine my message or like hone my craft or personal outreach to people or like worry about gathering case studies, or like, I feel like all that stuff can be so like, I just want to like show up and coach my clients. And I totally get that to an extent. But also I think if you're someone who's willing to kind of go that extra mile and like really treat your business like a business and really refine some of these things as the market adapts and changes, like that is what's going to make you stand out. I think in large part, like what is now leading to more successful growth is some of the stuff that people just don't want to do. And I think that's, worth saying. And if you're someone who's kind of wanting to or willing to do some of those things, it really can go a long way. Any chance you'd be interested in sharing some of the lessons, takeaways from the training you and Sarah did? We'd love to hear how you feel about in person with other folks in the industry. Yeah. I'll think about that. I'll think about what I could do for that. I'll grab that, Michelle. Thank you. But honestly, like, I think just to be clear, like a lot of this is stuff that like, when just to answer that question, like in a very small way, like when I went there, I loved everything about it. It was amazing, but I wasn't like, oh, I like learned all this stuff I didn't know. I was like, yeah, personal outreach is where like, do you know what I mean? Like, yeah. We all need like good brand angles. Like, so, I mean, I say that in the best way possible. I mean that in such a good way. It was so wonderful, but I think it's like, this is kind of the stuff. And I feel like sometimes I feel like there's so much messaging around like, get in the right rooms, blah, blah, blah. And I hate that messaging personally, because like, I feel like what you typically find is a lot of conversations you already know. You're just with people who are maybe refining them or doing the actions more potentially. But I think it's just helpful to say like, one of these takeaways, like the personal outreach thing, was hugely from that. Obviously I'm seeing it work a ton, but I mean, like, again, it was like so helpful to be like, oh yeah, this is like for everyone at every level. And then, I think like for sure the like unique angle. I mean, I think that's obviously been coming for a while in our space, but I think everyone would very much agree with that. That was part of that conversation too. So anyway, just to say, like, I don't think these are in large part mirroring that too. Because it's not rocket science, but again, I do think like what it looks like to grow now versus maybe what it looked like to grow in 2020 is a little different. I don't think that is bad. I think, but naming that is really helpful, and being like, okay, can I be that person that goes like that extra little bit? Because it can really go a long way. With that being said, I will do my quick little bonus one, which you guys probably already are going to guess what it is because I can't help myself. But the bonus, what's working right now for me, is always look at your data. Because similar to what Michelle was saying, actually, on that vein, being at that retreat and like masterminding with people, like that was so many of the questions I was kind of shooting to people. It's like, well, what's happening with your data here? And when people know that, things get a lot fucking easier. And I think like that's what combats so much of this like intensity in the online space, because you just know what your business is telling you, and that always works. Right. And people that are playing at a higher level are looking at that stuff because it matters. Like when you're spending thousands and thousands of dollars on ads, like it actually matters to look at your data. When you're putting all of this time into your energy and money and time into your team, right? Like that matters. Yeah, Steph said, I thought that this would about data would be on the list. Yeah, of course, you know, I got to throw that in there. Yeah, super helpful for combating the brain stories. Exactly, right? Like, and I think that there's just like, this is why I'm always so passionate about it. I feel like I say this every time, but I just feel like a lot of business owners that are very far along are doing this, and then a lot of men are doing this. And I feel like there's this whole group of women business owners that do not realize how valuable this could be to them, or that they could leverage this. And I just feel so passionately about being like, yes, like we could just know these things. Like there's so much you could just know in your business with data, and then adjust to what's working based on that. So to me, like what's always working is like looking at your own data, knowing actually what's going on. Like that time I told you my funnel wasn't converting, and you pointed out it was converting at 5%. Exactly. That. That. Denise, Elisa said, aha, yes, catch the replay. So happy to have you here for part of it though. But yeah, like it combats the brain stories. It tells you what's working. It tells you what you actually need to do. Oh yeah, Denise said, love looking at my numbers. It's empowering. Could not agree more. I think it is the most empowering thing in business. And you know, I think like that's just always going to take you back to what's working. I think if you're in a place in your business where you're frustrated or you feel like you don't know what's working, like that's always the first place I would go. Like, yes, it's helpful to buy the programs or get the coaching or whatever, but like what you're bringing to that matters. Like Michelle's example here, right? She could say to me like, oh, my funnel isn't working. But then if she can bring numbers that we can actually drill down on and know the truth, I'm going to be a better coach because of that. Right. Like one of the reasons I wanted to start Dateable is because then I could force all my clients to do it, you know, because it helps me be a better coach. Like, so if you can bring that to any coaching or program you're doing, you are going to see better results because of it, because you're actually paying attention to what's working for you, which is always what's working. You know what I mean? And I think it's also what is necessary as things shift, like how I was saying earlier, like it just is a little bit more challenging to grow than it's ever been. And ultimately, like what helps us combat that is to have more information than we've ever had, right? I was actually talking to someone who was like, had a really, really successful corporate career. And I was saying to her, like, yeah, it's kind of like so interesting to me how many entrepreneurs like don't think data is important or think they should do it later or aren't prioritizing it. And she was like, that blows my mind. She was like, in corporate, like if you don't have data and you don't have numbers, like you don't have shit. Or like at her level, right, in corporate. And she was just saying how it's so interesting because to them that was like, you like live and die by that kind of thing. And I'm not saying you have to like live and die by that in your business, but I do think it's like, okay, well, let's look at that for a minute. Like these really large successful companies are like relying on this heavily, and we're going, oh no, I don't need any of that. And I think it's just really helpful to see. So that is your bonus. Thanks for listening to my TED Talk on data. Elizabeth had just moved into our new home, lots going on, but love to quickly check in. Oh, congratulations. That is so, so exciting. Huge congrats from us. And thank you for being here. Okay, so that's all I got, guys. There are things working. Things are like, people are still making great sales. You know, it's not, when I say it takes more, I don't mean it's not possible. Like I have had many clients having best months yet. Like it's not possible. It's just different. And I think that's what is important to say here too. So thank you guys for being here. Remember, if you comment, we're giving away that $100 gift card tomorrow. I hope you guys have a beautiful rest of your week. Thank you, Denise. Thank you, Michelle. I so appreciate you guys being here, and I will talk to you next week. Bye, y'all.